Yep. So we're always going to make sure that if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's what we're here for. You know, I'm Miguel with Technical Service Engineering.
And I'm Scott Odell from Tech Services Engineering.
And welcome to our Tech Talk. So last time on our previous video, we discussed equipment preservation. And Ben and Bill touched a little bit on greasing plug valves. Okay. Today we're going to take you through the steps and proper procedures on how to properly grease these plug valves. In front of me, I've got a Legacy 3-inch plug valve, okay, which is our current offering for plug valves. And then right next to me, we've got
We also have a 7-inch large bore manifold plug valve.
Yep. And so these two plug valves do take Valtex 972 when it comes to greasing.
And why would we use that particular grease?
Well,
what's different about it?
We've conducted a lot of validation testing with different types of grease. And through field and research and development testing, we found that the Valtex 972 works best for these types of plug valves.
Okay.
So it doesn't easily get washed out during the pumping process like other greases do. So that's why we say stick to the Valtex 972. It's what's fully recommended for these types of plug valves.
What if I made a mistake and like pumped the wrong grease, or I had the wellhead guys? Wellhead uses different grease, so.
Well, I think, you know, when it comes down to greasing plug valves, we've run into that situation where you get on site and you're trying to cycle a plug valve, and guess what happens? It gets stuck, right? So then you got MPT time. So you're always going to want to make sure that you stick to the Valtex 972.
Okay.
If you start mixing greases and things like that, it could cause the plug valve to basically lock up.
So if we were in a situation where we knew that had happened, we could grease the plug valve properly a few times, actuate the valve, and try and push that mixed grease
Push
out.
that old grease out, right? Push
Okay.
the sand and everything that got trapped in between the plug.
That makes good sense.
Yeah. But so what we'll do is we'll get started on the 3-inch plug valve.
Okay.
Right. So what we do is we've got a greaser right here on the bottom of the plug valve. Okay. And then we have our tools. So we've got our hand pump. You've got two options. And then you've got an air actuated pump that you can use as well with the foot pedal. If you notice here at the end, we've got a gauge. Okay. You've got gauges on both style of pumps. And you're going to want to monitor that pressure whenever you're pumping grease into the plug valve. Okay.
What pressures do we pump at?
Well, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cycle it from 2,000, 4,000, all the way up to 6,000. Okay, during your cycles. So what you'll do is you'll actually end up connecting to the bottom of the greaser. Okay, you're going to hold it just like that. Make sure you get a good visual on your gauge.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and pump your grease all the way up to 2,000 psi. Okay, you're going to release the pressure, and then you're going to cycle your valve. Right now, I've got it in the open position. You're going to cycle it to the closed position, and then you're going to hear a popping sound. And what that is, it's the grease actually traveling around the plug, releasing the air, and the grease is filling any kind of voids inside the plug. Okay. So then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to bring it back to the open position. You're going to pump your pump up all the way up to 4,000 psi. Release the pressure on your foot pedal, and then what you're going to want to do is cycle the valve again into the closed position. Okay, you're going to hear a popping noise. Again, that's the grease filling the voids, releasing any kind of air around the plug, trapped air. And then what you'll do is you'll bring it back to the open position. You're going to follow this step one more time. However, you're going to go up to 6,000 psi on your gauge. You're going to release pressure, bring it back to the closed position. You're going to hear popping noise again. After you've done that, you'll cycle it back to the open position. You've then fully greased your 3-inch plug valve.
So this sounds kind of like it's a two-man operation.
Can be, yeah.
I don't see how one guy could pay attention to his gauge and pump at the same time.
Yeah, it can be, but
okay.
Now, as far as how often you should grease these plug valves, we usually recommend every 6 actuations or every 6 stages, whichever comes first.
Okay.
So You know, we do recommend that you grease in between stages during pump maintenance or anything like that. We always recommend more greasing and less.
More is better.
Yeah, more is better. So,
All right.
but what about this 7-inch large bore plug valve?
So on our large bore plug valve, we use the same grease.
Okay.
All Weir plug valves are engineered around the use of 972 grease.
Okay.
We find that the tack helps it stick to the products inside of our floating plug design. On this particular valve, it's got a grease fitting on both sides.
Okay.
The pressure's slightly different. It's a little bit lower than the standard line plug valve. The delivery pressure on grease for this valve is 2,000 to 3,000 pounds, and you do both sides. So we would take our line and we would hook it up to the grease fitting. We would pump it up to somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds,
Okay.
and we'd watch the gauge to make sure that it stayed steady. I've noted in the past that a lot of people will get in a bit of a rush because of the way the job is progressing.
Okay.
And they'll pump it up to 3,000 psi, and then it'll bleed back, and they'll disconnect and go to the other side.
Gotcha.
The reason I bring that up is because when it's bleeding back, that means this valve is taking grease. And as you look at this valve, it's huge, right?
Right.
So it's going to take quite a bit of grease.
Okay.
So most of the time, you're not going to grease with the smaller grease gun. This is ideal for the smaller valve. The larger valve, you probably want something that has a bit more volume, a bit more grease.
Gotcha.
So 2,000 to 3,000 psi, it holds pressure. We release, then we go to the other side,
Okay.
and we pump in 2,000 to 3,000 psi until it holds, release, and then we actuate the valve from open position to closed, and then back to open. And we repeat that one more time.
Okay.
At that time, this valve will pop and snap and gurgle just like the other valve does.
Yeah.
As air gets in there and the grease travels around the way we want. If there's any confusion, there's an indicator plate on it'll be on the bottom of the valve in the standard configuration. So
Okay.
you'll need to look to make sure that it went all the way from open to closed.
Gotcha.
Half measures, don't grease the valve. You
Yeah.
have to go all the way to stop on both positions.
And I mean, how often should we grease a plug valve?
So this plug valve gets, again, is slightly different. And it's every 12 pumping hours.
Okay.
Or every 6 open and close actuations, thank you. A little bit tongue-tied this morning. Or every 6 stages, whichever
Okay.
comes first.
Okay.
There's a tendency for people to rig this in, and this valve is to close in the well,
Okay.
or to not open and close it at all. And with that in mind, we give that every 12 pumping hours or 6 stages because it can get locked up with sand just like the smaller valves do.
Right. Right.
If you try to run a whole job without actuating this
greasing.
valve, you're going to be locked up.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's quite a bigger deal to resurface this valve than that valve.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
So
I think we've both run into situations out in the field where, you know, you get a 3-inch plug valve that gets locked up, or you get a large bore 7-inch plug valve that gets locked up. And I tell you what, changing one of these out in the field can be quite strenuous, right?
yes, that's
So-
at least a half a day's work.
And that's why we say, you know, if you grease it more often than not, you won't run into these issues, you know, and you extend the life of the equipment. You know, you extend the performance of the equipment as well. And so
Yes.
it all comes down to reducing NPT time, right?
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
well, you know, if you need any more information, make sure to check out the comments below. You know, we are part of the Technical Services Engineering Group. We're always here to support our customers. Let's see if we have any questions, huh?
So one more time, Miguel, could you tell me what the intervals were on this, just so that I can remember?
Right. So as far as intervals go, it's going to be every 6 stages,
Okay.
okay, or every 6 pumping hours,
Okay.
whichever comes first. So,
And then,
and if you ever forget,
yeah.
you can always go back to our literature.
Oh,
Right here.
fantastic.
So what this is the flow control product catalog. See right there. Okay. If you forget anything that we've stated in the video, feel free to reach out to one of us and we can send you this catalog. It's got all of this important information for you.
Okay.
You can stick it in your back pocket, in the back coveralls, whatever it may be. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
So our large bore valve, remember, is 12 hours, 6 stages, or 6 activations of open and close.
right, whichever comes first.
Yep.
Yeah.
2 to 3,000 psi on both sides, not just one.
Right.
Has to be both sides.
Right. Yep. I guess we've taken you through the procedures for a 3-inch and a 7-inch large bore plug valve. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us for any kind of training, whether it be virtual training or in person.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd love to come out and train.
so we're always here to support. I guess we'll check out and see if we have any questions or anything like that.
Do you have to grease the gearbox on the wheel valve?
That's a good question. The gearbox on this particular plug valve gets greased when it goes into the service center for service. It doesn't consume much grease. It doesn't bleed into the valve. It stays right in the gearbox, but we check out the gearbox at servicing and we make sure that it's got plenty of grease in it.
Awesome. Let's see here if we got any more questions.
How do we get a hold of tech services if we want to schedule training?
You can reach us at our email addresses. Okay.
Which are
Or
down
you can-
below.
Yep. Or you can check out the links below as well. It'll have all of our contact information. So, yep. See, it looks like we're getting some more private training for your team. Yep. Anytime, just feel free to reach out to technical services. Again, we're here to support you guys, whether that be in the offices or out in the field. We're a very mobile team. We can run out and do training at your request, or we can do virtual training whenever that may be. Feel free to reach out to us on any kind of support that you need. Let's see here. Where do I go to get it? Yep.
It could either be at your location or you could come here. We're pretty flexible as far as providing training to make sure that it meets your needs.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we got, let's see here. White is greased. There's so much. Yeah, so we recommend the Valtex 972. We're sitting here in our research and development facility, and we've done a lot of validation testing here in R&D as well as out in the field. We tested different types of grease, and we found that the Valtex 972 works best for this particular application. It's got the correct tackiness, and it doesn't get pumped out as easily during the pumping process. So,
Yeah,
see
rather
what else.
thick grease, and that's what we've done our testing with.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it. We really appreciate everybody joining us today on our Tech Talk, where we discuss plug valve greasing on your legacy and large bore plug valves. I guess check us out on the next video. You'll have a good one.
Thanks.
Thanks.